It's 11:47 p.m. You're scrolling. Your phone sits next to you. Dead. No, hey, just thinking about you. Nothing. And somewhere in your chest, something shifts. You tell yourself it doesn't matter. But it does. You know it does. Because you've texted first every single time. Every single time. And she's never initiated. Not once. And tonight, you're finally asking yourself the question you've been avoiding. Why? This isn't about neediness. This isn't about ego. This is about understanding the silent language that runs beneath every relationship. The power game nobody talks about. And what I'm about to explain will change how you see every interaction you have. Not just romantically, but everywhere. Here's what happens. You meet her. Chemistry is electric. Everything feels natural. But then the texting starts. And you notice something. You're the one reaching out. Always. Every morning. Good morning. How's your day? Every evening. How did it go? You're orchestrating the entire rhythm of communication. And here's the dangerous part. You rationalize it. You think, maybe she's just not a texter. Or she's busy. Or the one that really kills you. If she cared, she'd reach out. But that last thought, that's where you're finally honest with yourself. And that honesty terrifies you. Because deep down, you already know what's happening. She's not texting first because texting first means something. It means you're on her mind. It means she's thinking about you without the structure of your message forcing her to respond. It means she values the connection enough to initiate. And she's not doing that. Let me explain why this matters, and more importantly, what's actually going on in her psychology. Text first. It's vulnerable. Sounds simple, right? But think about it. When you text someone, you're putting yourself out there. You're saying, without words, you matter enough to me that I'm willing to risk looking too eager, too available, too invested. You're voluntarily making yourself accessible. You're creating an opening. And here's what most people don't understand about human psychology. We protect what we value, but we also protect our sense of power. Initiation is power. The person who texts first in any relationship is subconsciously expressing lower value. Not lower as a person, but lower in that specific dynamic. This isn't conjecture. This is observable. Think about your friendships. Think about the people you don't care that much about. Who texts them first? Usually you, right? Because the dynamic is already established. They don't need to work for your attention. You've already given it. But your closest friends? The ones who mean the most to you? You don't always text first. Why? Because the relationship is secure enough that silence doesn't threaten it. You trust them to reach out. You trust them to care. The initiation becomes balanced. Sometimes you start the conversation. Sometimes they do. That's the difference. When she never texts first, she's communicating something specific. She's saying, I'm comfortable with you reaching out. I'm not worried about losing you. I don't need to maintain this. I can afford to be passive. It's a subtle assertion of security in the dynamic. Now, before anyone says this is about gender, hear me out. Women, on average, have been socialized differently around initiation. There's a cultural narrative that says women should wait for the man to reach out. Women should be pursued, not the pursuers. This creates a specific dynamic where, even if a woman is genuinely interested, she might hesitate to text first because of the cultural messaging she's internalized. But here's where it gets interesting. That hesitation, it's still a choice. It's still a behavior pattern. And behaviors are expressions of how someone sees the dynamic. When a woman consistently doesn't text first, one of several things is true. She doesn't want to seem too eager. She's protecting her image of being selective, desirable, worth chasing. She's testing you. She wants to see if you'll keep reaching out. She wants to measure your investment. She genuinely isn't that interested, and she's keeping it passive to avoid commitment or intensity. She's been hurt before, and she's created a rule. I never text first. That way, I maintain control. Or she's secure in the dynamic and doesn't feel the need to initiate because she trusts you'll keep the connection alive. The first four? They're all variations of the same thing. She's managing her power and her image. The last one? That's rare. That's actual security. And the difference between security and control is everything. Let me be clear about what power actually is in relationships. Power isn't about dominance. It's about options. It's about who needs whom more. And the person who needs less always has more power. When she never texts first, she's signaling that she has options. Maybe she does. Maybe she doesn't. But she's signaling it. And signaling is often more powerful than reality. You, on the other hand, are signaling the opposite. Every time you reach out first, you're saying, I'm thinking about you. I want to talk to you. You're on my mind, which in isolation is beautiful. But repeated without reciprocation, it's saying, I need this more than you do. Here's the psychological dynamic that emerges. You become the giver. She becomes the receiver. You become the one with the problem, the desire for connection. She becomes the one with the solution, her attention. You begin seeking her approval by maintaining the connection. She begins feeling the privilege of your attention without the responsibility of maintaining it. And over time, this creates a specific relationship architecture. You're not equals. You're a pursuer and a pursued. And that's not sustainable. It's not even real intimacy. Here's where most men get stuck. They see this pattern. They recognize they're texting first every time. And they think the solution is to stop texting. Just stop. See if she reaches out. Test her. Create artificial scarcity. And sometimes it works. She notices the silence and texts. And for a moment, you think you've won. But you haven't. You just discovered that she can text. You haven't changed the dynamic. You just forced her to make a move that she wasn't naturally inclined to make. And the moment you go back to your normal pattern, which you will because the need for connection is still there, you're back where you started. The trap isn't in the texting. The trap is in the belief that texting patterns are the problem. They're not. They're the symptom. The real issue is that somewhere in this relationship, a dynamic formed where you valued the connection more than she did. And that doesn't happen overnight. That happens gradually, through thousands of small choices, through texting first, through being available, through prioritizing her responses over your own peace. And here's the hard truth. Sometimes she simply doesn't value you as much as you value her. Not maliciously, not intentionally, just the reality of where you are in her life and where she is in yours. When someone doesn't text you first, they're not necessarily being cruel. They're not necessarily manipulating you, but they are communicating something. You're not a priority that requires active maintenance. Think about the people in your life that you genuinely care about, the ones who matter most. Do you sometimes text them first? Yes. But do they ever text you first? Also, yes. It flows both ways. Because when people genuinely value someone, initiation becomes natural. It's not a strategic move. It's an impulse. The absence of that impulse, repeated consistently, tells you something about where you stand. Now, here's what's crucial. This can change. Dynamics are fluid, but they don't change by you becoming more available. They change by you becoming less available, by you becoming genuinely less invested in the outcome, by you reaching a place where her response, or lack thereof, doesn't shake your foundation. But I need to be honest with you about something. Sometimes, even when you make this shift, nothing changes on her end. And that's information too. That tells you that the pattern wasn't just about your behavior. It was about her nature, about how she relates to people in general. Some people are givers. Some are takers. Some are ambivalent. And no amount of you changing will alter that fundamental reality about who she is. Here's what that realization looks like practically. You stop texting first, not as a test, not as a manipulation tactic, but as a reflection of a genuine shift in how you're relating to this person. You're no longer seeking her validation. You're no longer trying to maintain the connection through your efforts. You're living your life. You're building things that matter to you. You're investing in people who invest back. And if she's genuinely interested, she'll show up in that life. If she's not, you'll know. Finally, clearly, you'll know where you stand. And knowing is always better than wondering. The cost of maintaining a one-sided dynamic is severe. You lose yourself. You lose your time. You lose your dignity. Not because she's taking it, but because you're handing it over piece by piece in the form of text sent into the void. Months pass. You're still texting first. Years pass. You're still texting first. And one day you wake up and realize you don't even know who you are anymore without this pursuit. Your entire identity has become organized around trying to matter to someone who's made it clear that you're convenient, not essential. That's the real trap, not the texting, but the slow erosion of yourself. Now, let me address something directly. There are legitimate reasons why someone might not text first that aren't about power dynamics. Maybe she has anxiety around communication. Maybe she was raised in a family where she learned not to be the pursuer. Maybe she's depressed and struggling to reach out to anyone. Maybe she's genuinely just not a texter. And if that's the case, there are other ways to assess whether she values the connection. Does she respond warmly when you text? Does she ask you questions? Does she share things with you that she doesn't share with others? Does she make time for you when you see each other? Does she remember details about your life? Does she introduce you to people who matter to her? These are the real indicators. Texting first is just one data point. But when combined with other indicators of coldness, distance, or lack of reciprocity, that's when you know. That's when you need to listen to what the pattern is actually telling you. But here's the thing most people miss. The pattern isn't really about her. It's about you. It's about why you're willing to accept this. It's about what wound inside you is being soothed by this dynamic. When you text first every time, you're often running from something. You're not running toward her. You're running away from the anxiety of being forgotten, the anxiety of not matching, the anxiety of being replaceable. So you text, you maintain, you stay present, and through your persistence, you temporarily soothe that anxiety. See, I am relevant. I'm present. I matter enough to reach out. And for a moment, it works. But then the dopamine fades, and the anxiety returns. So you text again and again, each time hoping that this will be the time she reciprocates. This will be the time she proves that you matter to her. This will be the time you feel secure. But security doesn't come from her texting you first. Security comes from knowing that you matter regardless of whether she acknowledges it. It comes from having enough other sources of validation and connection that her indifference doesn't devastate you. Here's the truth nobody wants to hear. If you need her to text you first to feel valued, you're looking for her to fix something inside you that only you can fix. And the cruel irony? The moment you stop needing that from her, she often starts providing it. Because needs are repellent. But genuine disinterest? Genuine secure independence? That's magnetic. This isn't just about romantic relationships. This is about every relationship in your life. This is about why you feel anxious in certain friendships, why you reach out more than you receive, why you feel like you're always the one maintaining the connection. It's the same pattern, different context, same wound. And here's what happens. You become the emotional caretaker. You become the one who remembers birthdays. You become the one who initiates hangouts. You become the one who keeps the relationship alive. You tell yourself it's because you care more. But that's only part of the truth. The other part is that you don't trust people to care about you unless you force them to through your consistent presence. That's exhausting, and it's lonely, because you're never actually known. You're only ever maintained. So what's the move here? How do you actually shift this? First, stop believing that your effort creates value. You can't love someone into loving you. You can't text someone into valuing you. You can't perform your way into matching. That's not how human psychology works. Second, recognize that if someone doesn't text you first, that's information. It's not a referendum on your worth. It's information about how they're relating to you. And information is neutral. It's what you do with it that matters. Third, actually change your behavior. Not as a test, not as a tactic to manipulate her into texting you, but as a genuine reflection of a shift in your priority. Stop reaching out. Live your life. See what happens. And here's the counterintuitive part. When you stop reaching out, two things can happen. She might reach out. The dynamic might shift. You might find that she was just comfortable with the pattern you created, and when you change it, she adjusts. Or she might not reach out, and you'll know. Finally, clearly, you'll know where you stand. And knowing is always better than wondering. When you stop chasing, when you stop texting first, when you stop maintaining, you create space for something else to happen. You create space to actually see the relationship clearly. Because right now, you're so busy maintaining it that you're not seeing it. You're not noticing the small ways she doesn't reciprocate. The moments where she's convenient, not kind. The instances where she's responsive to you, but doesn't generate her own connection. And you're not noticing because you're too busy working. When you step back, you get to see the actual dynamic. Not the one you're creating, but the one that actually exists. And sometimes, when you see it clearly, you realize you don't want it. Not because she doesn't text you first, but because she's not the person you thought she was. The person you were working so hard to maintain a connection with. Here's the ultimate truth about texting patterns. They're a metaphor for everything else. They reveal how someone relates to you. They show you what place you occupy in their life. They demonstrate whether your presence is something they value or something they become accustomed to. And once you see that clearly, not through hurt or anger, but through genuine understanding, you get to make a choice. A real choice. Not from desperation, not from trying to prove your worth, but from actually seeing what's in front of you and deciding if that's what you want. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't. But whatever you decide, decide it from a place of clarity, not from a place of trying to fix something that might not be fixable. Because at the end of the day, the person who matters most is you. And the person who needs to text you first, consistently, is you. You need to text yourself messages of validation. You need to reach out to yourself. You need to initiate your own fulfillment. And the moment you do that, genuinely, consistently, everything else falls into place.